openings like over there. You see where the buildings are standing on the natural rock? You see the openings like windows there? These are entrances to Jewish burial caves from the time of the city of David, from some 2,700 years ago. There are about 50 of those underneath the village. And yeah, right there, for example, you see those openings in the rock?
In California, they build buildings on rollers, so the buildings roll. In fact, one of the ways they do it, stilts don't really work so well. But you said in earthquake zones.
Okay, now we're going to go down and see this 3D presentation about the timeline of Jerusalem, you know, during the first... City of David. For several seasons now, the very large scale in comparison to the other structures around here, structure which they say might be the palace of King David. This is very much under dispute, but it has some sort of basis for this. One is that this structure is all the way up at the top of the hill. So if there was a palace, it makes sense that it was here. Another sort of archaeological supporting sort of evidence or clue to this is a very massive supporting wall that is right out there that was discovered way back, some 100 years ago. Well, a bit less, but it is dated to the 10th century BC. 10th century BC is the time of David. Now, this was, the claim is that this supporting wall supported a structure that was built at the top of the hill. This place here is being excavated for the last 2 or 3 years now, and they hope they could sort of, I don't think they were ever able to come with a conclusive kind of evidence here, like something that would be, because this is so complex here. Top levels are mixing with the bottom ones. It's not neatly ordered, you know, hill that layer upon layer you sort of can walk your way down and you can really time the structure. It's people were living here throughout, and they dig cisterns and they dig caves, and it's all mixed up like that. The claim, the ones who are doing the dig here are from the Hebrew University. The ones that are very much against the idea that this is the place are of the Tel Aviv University. And people build careers over this. Now, the importance is not just, you know, their careers. The importance is that throughout the country, if you read the Bible, David and Solomon are being portrayed as huge sort of kings that ran empires. The poor guy Solomon had to marry 1,000 women to maintain the diplomatic ties with all the, right? But yet, when and they had huge kingdomship, huge areas were under their control. They had a lot of trade and all that. But then, when you look around the country for the archaeological sort of work that was done during the last 100 years or so, there is a disturbing lack of presence during their time in history of anything massive. When it comes to King Solomon, the Bible tells us, for example, that he built, captured, and rebuilt 3 cities. The Hazor on the north, at the opening to the Elah Valley, and of the Hula Valley. We're going to be there later this week. Another one at the Ajalon, in the opening to the Ajalon Valley, which is Gezer. This one he actually got as a present from the Pharaoh. And there was another one, Hatzor, Gezer, and the third one was Megiddo, at the entrance to the Jezreel Valley. And on those 3 places, right at the 10th century, they found similar gates to the city. And they say, you know, whoops, this could be him. But again, it's not conclusive. It's not some like hard... it's becoming more problematic when you go and check the record the historical record, the Egyptians, for example, they kept very strictly ordered record of all what they did, who sort of they had ties with, whom they traded with, whom they punished, whom they fought against, and all that. Everybody is mentioned, but our guys. So this is the earliest sort of archaeological evidence that was ever found carrying the name of Israel was on a, and again, it's very, it's not that clear, but it appears to be in, was found in Egypt, and it carries the name of Israel, and this is of the Pharaoh that correlates with the time of the Exodus, more or less. And over there he says something sort of a little bit strange about there was no sign anymore for Israel, something like that. So maybe it correlates, maybe, you know, can be sort of. When it comes to David, the earliest sort of archaeological finding that we have carrying his name, and it's not his name, it's the house of David, it says. It was found up in the north, in Dan. It's a city all the way in the most northern parts of Israel. And over there in secondary use, it was actually in the square in front of the gate to the city, they found an inscription on one of the stones used in the secondary use, carrying the name, it's like, of one of the kings up in the north, non-Jews, right, non-Israelis, not from the Israelites, and he describes his victories. And on one of his people he sort of beat in battle were a name and of the house of David, it says. And this is of the 9th century, so it's about 100 years after David. But apart from that, we don't have any more, you know, and this gave rise to a school in the academia that say that those two, if they were much smaller than they being portrayed in the Bible. And this is a very, you can understand, very sort of controversial, and it's an ongoing, it's very sort of, there is a very, in the literature and everything, that's an ongoing sort of debate between these two schools. And this could add, I mean, if this could be pointed out, because we know from the Bible that, you know, it makes sense that there's no much, you know, material evidence, because they were not great builders, you know. And it goes into the culture maybe till today. Well, you don't find really sort of material developed culture. We don't build pyramids. Well, we built the pyramids, but we didn't initiate it. What I'm saying is that the lack of, you know, physical sort of structures that were, they're not being portrayed as big builders. It's more the philosophy, more the morals behind it and all that. The lack of historical record, you know, can be explained in different ways, but it is an issue. This is like, when it comes right after the time of Solomon, we have beautiful correlation. One of the examples I'm going to show you in a minute, when we're out of here, I'm going to show you how beautifully the biblical report correlates with. We saw one example when we talked about the wall up there, right? How the runs over. But we have some great sort of correlation between the findings over here on this side when it comes to the centuries after the 10th century. So after, like, during the period of the kings of Judea, after Solomon, we have ample of sort of correlation between the archaeological findings and the biblical report. We have this issue with this too. Okay, let's go out of here.